just go to your quick access menu and you press digest. And when you come into the digest, what you're going to see is a whole listing of different things depending on where you are. Right now, I'm in the all folder. So this is all categories, everything that I've done. And then I can go up here and I can go to documents or notes. These are your sources. And then I can go to my categories. And when you go into a category, you have an uncategorized section for when you're just putting things in if you're not sure where to place them yet. And then you have all of your different categories. One cool thing that's really fun is this quotes category. So these are all quotes that I've just decided to put in here, and it was kind of an Easter egg buried in the update. You create a quotes category, and then once you put those in, if you put the device to sleep, you're going to notice, of course, I have a picture of my family here, but then right here at the top, and you can have any background you want, and then you can move this. You can make it go straight horizontal across the top. You can have it over here like a bookmark, like I have currently. You can have it anywhere on the screen and at any size you want it to be. What it does is every so often the screen will refresh and it will change the quote. So it's just a nice, fun thing to have there, and you can have those quotes be whatever you want. And it's so easy to make that. I did that on my PC with the desktop app really quickly, and it just worked flawlessly for me. Also, you have your other ones right here. I've got what I'm calling my digest function test. And so I've got a lot of different things here. I've got some different manual entries. I've got things I've pulled from books. And what you're going to see is there's a lot of different types here. So for example, this one I pulled from some medical research. Depending on, I scanned it with the app on the phone and pulled that in, and it pulled in the text, and it was one big long document. Now I haven't gone through and cleaned this up yet, but I do plan to do that. And since it was scanned in, anything that's quote unquote manual is going to be editable. And that's so I can clean up that text. If I pull this from a PDF or an EPUB, it's not going to let me edit that because that's someone else's book. And I know it's kind of a workaround. I could scan the physical book, but again, I'd have to clean up that OCR. It's not always perfect. So the idea being that if it's manual, you are saying that you are manipulating this and it's going to give you a little bit more freedom. And then of course here at the bottom, you have the handwriting and the keyboard annotations. So you can type or handwrite in here. And of course I can just keep adding text here with my handwriting. I can use a keyboard or the virtual keyboard to add text this way. I can also edit the keyboard in the app on both the phone or any mobile device and the desktop app. So a lot of different things you can do, but let's step back for a minute. Let's take a look real quick at what the whole digest is. So we talked about sources versus categories. You can see all of my categories here. I am thinking through how to use categories. There are different ways of approaching that. Sometimes you might think of a category as what I have here, which is science fiction. Another one might be this monthly recap, which is basically taking my meeting agendas and putting those all in one big note where I take and copy paste new digest entries into a note that then links back to this digest, which then links to a larger PDF. So it's really intricate. It's not the same as just creating a note that goes along with an EPUB or a note that goes along with a PDF. So it's different that way. You do lose some functionality on the note-taking when you do that, which kind of makes some sense, and I don't think that trade-off is bad. If I go in here, and you'll see here that this is still a manual entry. I have my annotation here. I have, and what this was, just so you know a little bit about how this happened, and I'll show this here in a little bit, how easy it is to create annotations from third-party platforms. But what I did here was I copied this text out of the Heaven and Earth grocery store that I'm reading on my Kindle, and I pasted it as a new digest entry, and then I took these notes. And then I took and I added a few questions in text that are about this passage. Again, it's showing manual because it was pulled in from a third-party app. Okay, so for this example, let's go into history and let's go into the biography of Henry Clay. So this should show you a little bit of what's going on. So I did some tests here. You can see there's where you can put your handwriting annotations. There's where you can put your keywords. I had done some more robust things, and I have to reach out to Supernote because it seems like some of the older digest entries that may have had things put in before this new update may have broken links. So I will want to find out how I can get those restored, how I can get that corrected. But I do want to show you the functionality as it works now if you are to create something. But so what we did was we came from here and we come into this entry. And in this entry, you get your handwriting, you get your keyboard, you go up here and you can see there's the author information, the category it's in, and both of those are editable. So really easy to edit that or cancel out. And you get a link to the actual source document. So what this does, and we'll show this here in a few minutes, is if I now insert this digest entry into a note, I get access not only to the handwritten text, the typed text, but the original document with the selected digest entry. And it looks a little different depending on what you have. So here you're going to get those brackets, which you can now use this pen tool, the selector tool, to create instead of having to draw them manually. That's a huge step up. I've been waiting for Rada to do that for a while. In the PDF version of that, you're going to be able to make that a highlight and then make it a digest entry. So it'll just look a little visually different, but it's the same basic function. So now, again, I get all of that. And so I can still take handwritten notes here, and I go right back to where this digest entry came from. So now we'll go back into the digest entry, and you'll see, here it is. I will go back to the digest, and then when I go back out, it takes me to the full digest. So a little bit of navigation. I can also search any handwritten text straight from here. So I can put test, and we'll probably see this come up a few times. And I hit test, and there are a whole bunch. But it not only crawls my hand or my typed text that I put into the entry, but also the text within the source document, within the quotes. So it's going to pull up every time you see the word test. And then, of course, you can get out of that. And then that hyperlinks. So it's really impressive the way it handles this. Now, there are a couple other things here. Here you can click and you can create a new category. Pretty straightforward. You create your categories. Like I said, I'm still figuring out the best way to organize my thoughts around this, but pretty fun and cool. If you have older digest entries, or if you just want to say type things, and maybe you want to take some stuff you've got in Obsidian that are old notes and you want to turn them into digest entries, or you have notes from a meeting back when you typed them. If you save those as a text file, you can come back in here, go to insert, and pull that text file in as a new digest entry. So it's a really nice way to be able to get that into another format and into another form. And of course, one thing I didn't show here at the top is you get the last date that it was accessed or modified. You get the title and page of the document. And then this little icon here tells you if you already have annotations. So you'll notice on some of these, there are no annotations. It's just highlighted text. So it's basically just snippets. They're added to the digest, but you haven't done anything with them yet. So for example, let's go back into our Henry Clay example here. And so now let's say I want to go to a different piece and I want to grab my selector tool. And then I want right here, just go to this spot. And you saw how snappy that was. Really cool. Now I can copy that text and insert it somewhere else, perhaps into a note through a text box. Again, a really key feature here. Or I can go ahead and create that new digest entry. Now it's been created. I just have to tap on it. So now I have my canvas. And it used to be this would be all you had. You'd have one page, nothing else. Now you'll notice there's a slider bar over here. And if I pull down, I get a lot more space to be able to write in and give myself that real estate. Now, am I going to get the full note functionality here? No. I'm going to be able to take notes. Now, if I want to enhance that, I can always put this digest entry into a note later and take far more notes, but I can also mix and match digest entries, which is something a lot of other platforms just can't do. They tend to tie a note to a source. This allows you to tie multiple sources to multiple notes. As I noted before, you get extra space here. You can also go to this keyboard function and enter in text either with the on-screen keyboard. You can type it in, write it in, or you can connect a Bluetooth keyboard manually, or you can even use the app to pass through your desktop keyboard to type in text. So it's pretty cool the way that it works, and it really functions well. But so that's part of it. You get your citation here at the top. We already talked about the fact that you have the different authors, and this is actually Daniel Mallory. So we'll put in Daniel Mallory was the author on this one. We will say OK. Now you'll see that has updated. It's uncategorized currently, and of course we know that this was under history. So we will go to our categories. You'll see all of them here. We will go to history. Now that is tagged, and we can make some handwritten notes. Hello again. When I actually have time to really go through and do a deep read on something, we'll have even a better representation of all of this. Now you do make some compromises. It's pulling from an EPUB, so you can't edit this text here. That's to keep the source consistent. I do understand why they made that change. And you have limited tools. So you basically get your pen tools. So you get all of your different types of pen, and then you get different types of eraser. If I hit this, it just does a regular static line, but my eraser tool does work. So the 2-finger erase does make it so that I don't have to switch tools up here, and then I get undo and redo. And I don't think that's a bad trade-off. I mean, I get that in some platforms when you go from your current reading, your EPUB or whatever it is, your PDF, to another area, that you are going to get the full suite of note tools. But this is by design, the way they do this, and it makes sense to me the way they do it. And so I think that to me is really important. So let's go ahead back out, and let's go into something to do with leadership here. So let's go ahead and see if we can find something that is not a manual entry. Let's go to documents, let's go to PDFs, and let's go into one of these. So this is a PDF on multimodal learning. So we'll open this up, and now you've got your PDF. Now, again, as always, with this size of device, it's not an A4 size. So to really be comfortable with reading, especially a columned PDF, you will want to turn it this way because that makes that text more legible. But now here you'll notice this consistency of tools. So here we have the selection tool. Now there's going to be a different contextual menu here. You're still going to get the annotation tools, but you're also going to get some other things. So let's go ahead and we will select this text right here, and they really made this snappy with the latest update. And when I do that, okay, so when I pull that down, you see I get a different tool set. Now it's not vastly different. I can choose an underline. I can choose highlighting, which does it kind of in a darker grayscale. I can copy it, again, to insert into a text box. And I can, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I know what happened. So if I highlight something, it takes away my annotation function. So I do want to be clear about that. So when you do it the first time, and let's go ahead and do this over here, and I'll show you what I mean here. So we'll go ahead and highlight this. Now you'll see right at the very first time, I get a choice. Here's where I have to decide. Do I want it to be copied? Do I want to highlight it? Do I want to underline it? Do I want to do a digest entry? So once I do a digest entry, that changes the dynamic. Over here, I had the option of doing just the highlight because that's what I selected. So here I'll select digest. And when I do that, you'll notice it uses that same formatting structure that you used in the EPUB. So you get the brackets, and the brackets tell you that that is a digest entry. This will tell you that this is highlighted, and you can add an embedded PDF comment, or you can delete or copy. Whereas over here, if I press, I go into the digest. And again, I get that same canvas. And what you'll notice is this is uncategorized. So I can add a category if I want to. So we will go ahead And let's see, where do we want to put this? I don't really have anything that fits yet, so we'll leave it uncategorized for now. I don't have the author, or actually it's, okay, so chin and go. Now, so I'll go ahead and say okay to that. Get rid of that. Say okay, because it's in landscape mode. It was kind of covering it up. So now I have that taken care of. So there is an example of creating an annotation or creating a digest entry from an EPUB and one from a PDF. Let me show you now where this kind of superpower comes in. So I'm going to go back out and I am going to go to a base note. So let's go ahead and see. I have my testing environment. So let's pop over to testing and I'm going to go into Manta and there's beta versions. This isn't a beta anymore. So I'm just going to do it here. So I'm going to say, I want a new note. I'm going to say digest test. And I'm going to create that note. You'll notice that it got lowercase there. And for some reason, it has trouble saying that both words should be capitalized, but it usually gets it, but occasionally has an issue. So now there's a couple of ways I can do this, and I can always remove the template later. So I leave the line template by standard, and I leave a real-time recognition note. But so now we're in here. So now there are a couple of really cool new features, and this isn't just going to be on the digest here. So we're going to talk about the text entry. So for example, I would call this digest test. And when I do that, now I can lasso that, and then I can go here and I can say recognize as text. And when I do that, what it does is it remembers the last thing I did as far as font settings, bold or not bold or italic or centered, and it will automatically do that. One thing I like to do just for consistency is I drag this over to this far line. I drag this over to this far line so that it truly centers that on the page. And then I get out. Now I'll circle that again, and now I'll turn that into a heading. And now if you go over here to my headings, you'll see there's digest text. Now, one thing that I think is kind of cool is if I wanted to create kind of a fake nested headings. It's not quite as fancy as some of the platforms that allow you to do subheadings, but you could theoretically do headings with left justify, center, and right justify. And then that way they would actually show up that way here. So if you notice this, this is centered. If I left justify this, it will go over here. So you could create kind of that structure all the way down. And that's a pretty cool feature to have. And then I can circle this again, which is what I tend to do. And now I'm going to go into my keywords. When I go in here, you have usually a bunch of favorites, which I have a lot of. It also, if you type in something that already exists, it will pre-populate that, which is kind of cool. But so for here, I can tag this as many times as I want. So I could leave this with just the title tagged, or I could say, this is the digest ad, and then it keeps me on this page, and that's something I really like. It doesn't necessarily take me off of it. So I can say digest, I could do testing, add that, go back, add that, go back, and let's say Supernote, and we'll have that pop up, and it occasionally separates those words. So I'll say Supernote, and I'll add, and then we will go with, well, what else do we want to put in here? So let's put organization, and I can do as many keywords as I want. I've done up to 10, and you may think that could be overkill, but for me, the way I'm doing this is I'm building it out in my head and in this tablet so that if I do a keyword search for testing and I've tagged any of my notes with testing, I will be able to get to that information. It will pull it right up. The same if I tag a person, in some of these notes or in some of these different places, then it will tag those people and I can find it that way. I can look at all my meetings from 2025. I can, so there's a lot of different things. As a matter of fact, that's one more we'll add. Now, some platforms, as I said, do cap you on the number. This one, I've done up to 10 to 15 keywords without any problems at all. So then we go back out. And now we've got that set up. We've got our table of contents for whenever I merge this later if I want to. We've got our keywords entered. Now we get to do the cool thing, which is the text box. So you come down here and you collect and you press on text. And when you do that, you can do either an insert digest or a new text box. And what's really nice about that is this idea that let's go ahead and say that I want to put in the 3 different sources we just went through. So for example, let's say that I want to go ahead, and I always do it in the order, or you can go by categories. So you can pick whatever category you want to go from, or you can look at most recently used, or you can search this. So if you want to search for a specific thing. But so what we're going to do is, and this is where the limitation of the other platforms can really be a limitation. If I have a note that is tied to one book or one source, that's where all my stuff is going to be. Whereas here, when I go ahead and let's go ahead and insert all 3 of these. So I'm going to go ahead and say insert. You'll notice now I can move this up and it goes right here. And that's my box. I can change the size. It gives me the citation. It tells me what page it's on, and it creates a link. All of that right here, I can copy it, I can manipulate it, I can do different things with it. I can keep it left justified, I can center it. So let's go ahead and do that for all 3 of those. So let's go ahead and insert digest, and we'll go to the second one. And again, you get that same nice flow, a little bit bigger on the text. So we'll put it there. And then we'll do the last one. And you'll see when I select a source, you get this link to source, and you can choose whether or not you want to make that link. And of course, I always do because of what I'm about to show you next. So now I'll go ahead and I'll pull this down here. And now you'll notice I have these really nice 3 digest entries. Now, what I've been using this for at work is I've been actually turning my meeting agendas into digest entries and then inserting those into notes, because of the fact that I can then have all of my different entries with that writing space, that typing space, things I can add to later, and it all comes in that really, really cool way. But let me show you why this is so powerful and why it's different. So these are 2 different sources, 2 different documents. One is a PDF and one is an EPUB. But what's awesome about it is now I can press this link, go directly to that page in that document, and then go back out using my back arrow here, and then press this. I didn't have to create a separate link. I didn't have to manually enter the link. It's automatically there. And I can go to either the page or the link. So I can go between all of those things all at once. I can go here, and now I am to where that digest entry was in that PDF, and maybe read some context around it, see what I might have missed, highlight something else, another piece, and add that to the digest, and maybe add that in later. So it's a really cool functionality to have that available to you. And it allows you to cross boundaries. It allows you to extend the way you think. You're not just in the moment. You're not just in that one book or note. But you can be. And that's what's really cool too, is you can choose to be in the digest, collect all this stuff, take all your notes, do all of these things, then enter that into a bigger note. So I'm free to write more text. And when I do that, now this becomes a growing, evolving document. I can circle this text right here, and now you'll notice that I can recognize as text, but there's also recognize as a digest. So if I am, and this is where the whole idea of a growing, evolving category comes in. So I could take and say that I'm working in a particular note, or what I showed you earlier, which was my monthly recaps. I could be within a note taking notes on a meeting, convert this to recognize as digest, and throw it into that category. So I can be in any note, anywhere, recognize it in text, and throw it into that into this category. Now, the only trick there, which is one, is that you have to leave it as converted to text to maintain the link. But assuming you do, then while you're in that digest, it will create a backlink right to this spot. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll do recognize as digest. It's going to pop up. It's going to give me the category right here. So we will just say digest function test, and we'll go ahead and put that I am the author on this one because I am. So we'll put edfin, and now there is my author note, and I will say create. And now you'll notice when I press on this, have a new digest entry. So it's just really kind of amazing what you can do with this tool, because you'll notice again, there's that backlink. So even if I move on and I'm doing other things, I have other things going on, and I come back to this digest, I'm going to have this entry, and I can add in more things, do my keyboard, do my handwriting, and then just press the button and I'm back to this note. So when you're thinking about researching and doing all of these really cool things, or even in meeting notes, like I said, with agendas and things that may be changing, this gives you so much functionality to be able to do that. And it's changing the way that I'm thinking about how I should take notes. And I'm still big into Obsidian, and the Obsidian workflow works great. But I'm beginning to think now, how many things could I do just on this device? And what would that look like? How would that evolve? I'm used to it being all handwritten notes, which it still could be. I mean, I could take large scale pieces of writing into text as digest entries and still have handwritten all of that. So it gives you that you're still doing the process of handwriting and putting that in, but you're converting your notes in the moment and they are actionable. And I think that's what's really cool. You know, the idea that I took write more text and then I make this digest entry and then I can, write even more. And there I am. And what's really cool about that part of it, we'll go to the full digest. And when we go to the full digest and we go to digest function test, you're now going to see that entry. So now it depends how I want to work. If I want to work in my notes and be in a note and be immersed in a note, I can do that. If I want to be in a document or a PDF and only come out to write annotations or to type something in real quick, I can do that. Or if I just want to highlight a whole bunch of stuff or create a whole bunch of entries as I'm reading through a text and then come back later and have put them in a container, or maybe I want to read 2 or 3 or 4 different articles under a larger category, and then I can come back in and I can say, here is how I'm going to spend my time. I am going to reread these passages that were very important to me. For example, with this out of the Kindle, text from the Kindle, I can do that and have all of that now in one place. And the only thing that won't work in a third-party app is this backlinking. So that is going to be different. Your manual entries do not backlink. Your note entries and your document entries, EPUB or PDF, will backlink. But other than that, just think about the power of that. If I'm reading 2 or 3 books on leadership and I may be kind of synthesizing those to be able to bring them into one coherent paper or note or discussion or blog post, I can do that now from the digest after I've put all these entries in, and I can take all of these different notes. And then this is the final piece to this puzzle. If I go here and I can select any or all of these, and then I can say export. And when you export, you can do 2 different things. You can export just text. Now, you will not be able to see your handwritten annotations if you do that. So just be aware of that. It only does the highlighted text. So that is one way just to maybe throw your collective highlights in. And maybe that's something you might need. Maybe that's really good for Obsidian or moving into a text editor. Or you can press PDF. So now it's exporting. It exported. We'll go ahead and jump to that and take a look at it. And then you'll notice it digest function test. And I had done this before. So now this is 1. And when I open that up, here, we'll go ahead and minimize this toolbar. Here is everything you see. So when I go through this, it's going to have all the different things. There's my handwriting. There's my text entry. There's my handwriting again. And then you'll see all of that. It is really an amazing thing. So the more you add, the bigger this gets. You can create these massive documents with all of these notes and things that you've connected all on device. You don't have to leave the device for this. Now you can with the apps, but you don't have to. And to me, that's something no other platform currently offers. The last thing we're going to look at here is how you would create a digest entry from a third-party app. So you can go ahead down here, and I have Feedly, I have a bunch of different things, but let's go ahead and go into more, and we will go ahead to Kindle. So we'll go ahead over to our Kindle and we'll pop this open. So it'll take it just a minute to open up. And then once we get opened up, unfortunately, Heaven and Earth Grocery Store is not here because it's been returned. And I keep trying to finish that book. It's a phenomenal book, very good, but I have not had the time that I would like to have. So we'll go into my library here. And for this particular example, let's go ahead and take Mel Brooks. You all know I'm a big Mel Brooks fan. Yes, I want to go to the most current page that I'm on. And I still got to admit, I love reading on the Manta. It's just fabulous. But let's go ahead and we will select some text here. We'll go ahead to here, select this whole passage. And then I'm going to go to copy. And when I copy that, that is now on the clipboard. Now we will go back to our digest. And I don't really have a category for this, so we'll go ahead and create one. We'll say biography or autobiography. And I'm probably going to clean up a lot of these categories, but so we'll put autobiography, and that should recognize, and it did. And I will say okay. And now I'm going to create a new digest entry. Okay. And so what I'll do is I will go ahead and double tap. Once you remember, you have to double tap. When you double tap, there it is. You can copy, cut, paste, select all again. It gives you all of those options. And of course, I could add things here if I wanted to. But now I go ahead and say I want to create that. And now under autobiography, I have a manual entry created here. We'll go ahead, and the author we know is Mel Brooks. So we will add him in. And then what I would probably do is go into this edit mode and put it's all about me so that I know what it is. And I may put the page number up there so that I have that information. And again, once I'm done there, handwriting, cool book. And if I want to come all the way down, then I can add more and just keep adding. So it's a really good functionality, really awesome that you can do that cross-platform. And just out of curiosity, since we're in here, I want to see if I can do that with Feedly. I know I can do it with Kobo because I've already tested that one, but let's see about Feedly. So Feedly, for those of you who don't know, is kind of a news feed source that gives you different web content. It's very e-reader friendly, very good for the Manta because it's not optimized to show multimedia content, and that's a good thing in my world. But let's say that we want to go into this article over Venezuelan jets. It's going to take me to the web. I'm going to see this, and let's just see if we can copy. And I'm not sure. Well, we might be able to here. So let's copy. So we will go to copy, and it should show us somewhere that it was copied. I may have missed that on the screen, but let's just see if it does this. So let's close back out. Let's go back to our digest. And for this one, let's just create a new digest. I probably won't keep this one. So we'll create this. We'll double tap. Yep, there's our paste button. And there it is. Again, this takes the idea of not having to tie a note to one specific book, one specific article. There are a lot of other platforms that have innovative tools to push different things to your device. But in this case, you don't even have to do that. You can just copy and paste the text you want straight from the page you're on and bring it in. And the cool part about that is you don't have to do it here. As you're going to see when we go to the desktop app, you can do it from anywhere. You can do it on the desktop app. You can do it on your phone. And all of that then goes into this one centralized hub for you to be able to manipulate and really go through and have fun with that information and that data. Total game changer in the way, at least for me, my brain works. I never know when I'm going to find something that interests me. And when I find it, I need to capture it. And this is a really good way to do that.